This is the Be the Solution podcast. I am Maria Quattrone, your host, and today, welcome my guest and friend, Josh Buchter, aka the Wolf of Broad Street. He is a real estate industry entrepreneur, business development pro, connector, event host, and owner publisher of Philadelphia Real Producers and Bucks County Real Producers magazine for real estate professionals. Real Producers, a magazine and events platform built to connect, elevate, and inspire the best of the best in the greater Philadelphia real estate game. Josh has been carving his lane in the Philly real estate scene since 2010 and now represents 70 companies as preferred partners. His team is global, but his reach and niche is Philly. Aside from business, Josh is an avid world traveler, just got back from a 50-day trip in Southeast Asia. Power moves only. This is everyday mantra.
Thank you.
Welcome, Josh. Great to see you again, my friend.
Thank you, Maria. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. I think we had you on a guest a few years ago.
Yes, it's good to be back.
Happy to have you back in action. So today we're going to dive right in. You've done some remarkable things over the last several years with the Real Producers magazine, with not just the magazine, but with the events, the platform, the exposure, the partnering with 70 different companies. And so I think what something is really important we can dive into is marketing and building a personal brand.
Awesome. Here for it.
So what did you do?
Really one foot in front of the other. Before the Wolf of Broad Street, I was just a kid who I promoted other parties in high school. I was selling mixtapes in malls. I was running around, always like a guerrilla marketing type of guy and kind of like in your face, and had a mobile DJ business for a long time, all through college. Started out as a dishwasher at a banquets hall with 4 rooms. So like subliminally, it's always been events for me. And looking back on it, it's crazy to think how I went from there to where I am today. After college, I remember working for a small boutique credit repair company in Old City, and I was living in the art museum area at the time. And part of my job was business development and getting new credit repair clients in the door. I used to take the SEPTA bus from Fairmount down to Old City every day. And I had a bright orange box that I made, a handheld box, and in big black lettering, it said, "Don't be a sucker." And in the box, there was blow pops with my credit repair business card attached to it. And I would walk up and down the bus and hand out these "Don't be a sucker" blow pops, because anybody with a bad credit score going for financing is paying super high interest and all the above. So it was a way for me just to catch eyes, get people into the office. And sometimes I used to even stop at City Hall, right outside of City Hall. And as the escalators were coming up from the L, I would hand them out right there too. So I think branding, even before social media and digital marketing comes into play, you have to be like a walking, talking billboard for yourself. In my case, a bearded billboard for yourself, and just really not be afraid to let people know what you do, who you are, where you're from, where you're going. The good ones will, recognize that and stick with you. So definitely got to be out there for sure.
Putting one foot in front of the other and never ever giving up.
Yes. And ideally no steps backwards,
Absolutely. So you've been in this real estate arena since about 2010.
Yep.
I met you before the Real Producers.
Yes.
I think it was, I don't know if it was a credit building or if it was the title. Not really sure.
Did a lot. Yeah. Title, credit, property management.
So a question.
Yep.
What did you have to overcome to get to where you are right now?
I would say, being young with no connections, moving back to Philadelphia, 2010, starting out at a friend's house. So there was a lot. Before I moved back to Philly, I had a house in Ventnor right out of college that I was renting out with about 8 of my friends. And after that summer came to an end and half of my friends weren't paying rent, we had to finesse our way out of a lease and find a new place to live, which led me to a office room in my friend's house. It was a small side office, extra bedroom, if you could call that. But the futon, basically, when you extended the futon, hit wall to wall. It was a $300 room, started with nothing, found a job on Craigslist in credit repair, commuted, like I said, back and forth to it. And just, I was making a draw on commissions of $300 a week at the time. So if I didn't make any sales, I would walk away with 300. But if I wasn't making any sales, I was wasting my time. So literally started with nothing, sold my car when I moved to Philly. And I was chained to my desk for a few years there, doing credit consultations and updates and collecting results and, sending letters to credit bureaus and everything I needed to do to make a living. Didn't know where it would lead me. I just knew I had a finance degree. And before credit repair, I was doing landscaping with a degree in finance from Fairleigh Dickinson University. So I was like lost in the world. So I feel like it took a lot for me just to have faith that it would lead to better opportunities within the Philly real estate industry as a business development executive and marketing guy, and finally led me to the events. And that's where I really made a splash in Philly and became kind of a household name, which I'm still continuing to build. And we hosted our first event at a dive bar in 2016 called The Bridge Philly, 100 Spring Garden next to Delilah's. It's now my dry cleaners, but humble beginnings with the events. And now we're doing awards galas and real estate symposiums, and our 5th annual golf tournament's coming up. Yeah, just building the contacts, aligning myself with the right people. Couldn't have done it alone. Had a great team around me, great supporting sponsors and corporate alliances and things like that. So everything we do, we try to move tactfully and strategically, and just try to continue to elevate. We're not there yet, but we're getting somewhere finally.
Oh, that's excellent. You're doing great work. I bet you didn't work only 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
No, never that.
So what kind of time and energy? Because people always want to talk about balance and, that's too much. I mean, I'd like you to share with our audience, really take off the mask and really what it takes. So I don't think people really understand that.
Yeah, I mean, there's endless opportunities for W-2 9-to-5 jobs out there, and there's nothing wrong with those. But we as entrepreneurs and small business owners trade the 40-hour work week for an 80, 90, 100-hour work week to do it our way, to have the opportunity to have a good week or have a monumental month, or to level up in one phone call without, having to wait for, climbing the corporate ladder to get where you want to be. We risk takers, and there is no work-life balance, at least initially. I know the world famous DJ Khaled worked for 10 years and, put out mixtapes and hosted events before he ever saw any type of real money. And now he's a having faith in yourself that it will eventually pay off is important. And even more important is enjoying what you do, believing in what you do. And I make it like a game. I don't play video games or anything like that, but to me, business is a sport and I enjoy it, and I'm passionate about what I do. So it doesn't really feel like work to me. You preached over the years, which I've always loved and respected, was the micro goals thing. And I think that's really, really important to, have an end goal in mind, but it's all those micro goals every single day, checking off your checklist, that really gets you somewhere. So that's been something that I've implemented over the years. And yeah, I mean, if something can get done and I don't need to write it on a list, I'll get it done right away. If I can't do it right away, I will put it on my list. And if it can't get done today, it gets transferred to tomorrow, and so on. So that I try not to let things slip through the cracks. But it is a 24/7 in real time type of business. Perfectly fine to disconnect and, have your time. But if you're stepping into this game thinking that you can do it from 9 to 5, you're mistaken.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes for real estate professionals, whether they're on the mortgage, brokerage, any kind of sales, insurance. I think to think that this is like a punch the clock is a real big mistake.
Yes.
And I think it sets people up for failure right out of the gate. Because if you don't know what's required and you think just like a few hours a day is what's going to take, then you're never going to get enough momentum to be successful. And it takes time. They say just to master something takes 10,000 hours. So do you want to do it? And I would say it's really probably more than that, like really at a really high level. But let's just go with the 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Now, that's about 7 years, I think. Or you could fast forward it, right? You could do it a little bit quicker by putting more hours in. And the quicker you're able to master it, the more momentum you're going to have. And I found that doing what you said you're going to do, winning the day, builds confidence. Confidence builds you wanting to do more. And you wanting to do more makes the whole process go faster to get there, right? So, it's interesting. There's a lot of one-hit wonders out there for different things. It's harder to stay there than to get there.
Right. I like that. It's true. Absolutely.
And so, I'm just almost a couple weeks shy of 20 years.
Wow.
And I'm still working my ass off.
Yes, you are.
And so I think that's something important too. Like you can get there, but to stay there, over the last, I'd say 7 years in real estate, it was a lot easier to get there than it was in the past. But I think it's a lot harder now to stay there because of the work ethic now required in today's environment. And so with that, you're doing a lot of events for the real estate professional. I know there's one coming up this week, and this will probably already be not aired yet, but we could talk about it anyway. I think it's a good segue into talking about some of the things that are going on in the industry, Josh. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that event and some of the guests that you'll have there?
Yeah, for sure. And just before it slips my mind, I mean, you can be a part-timer. Like you've mentored a lot of agents who can't give up the full-time job and transfer, 100% into real estate. But I think just like having the mentality of you being a full-time agent or a full-time business owner, even if you have to work another job in the meantime and leverage that job to, have the ability to do what you want to do. It's all about, the mentality. So I don't want people to think like they're hopeless if they can't devote 100% of their time to their craft.
Well,
it just can't end. There's a 9 to 5 and then there's a 5 to 9. So you have to, work both of them.
It's a good, yeah. I mean, I think glad you did bring that up. When I started in the industry, I call it a dual career.
Yeah.
I had a dual career. I had 2 careers. I had my radio advertising sales career. I had my real estate career. And I did that for 11 months.
Yep.
But kid you not, I worked 2 full-time careers.
Yep.
So if you make the decision to do that, make the decision to give it a full-time, not just 20 hours, because 20 hours is going to be very, very difficult to get you where you need to be, to get the momentum, to keep you motivated.
Right.
And I think that's a key thing because you need to have the flow to keep building it.
Yep.
And little by little by little. But if you don't do enough of it, you're never going to get the momentum to go.
That's right. Absolutely right. Yep. So it's good. Always good advice. I mean, as far as the upcoming events, I got something different coming up. Philadelphia Real Estate Symposium 2024. We're going to have multiple media companies covering it. The Philly Inquirer's coming out. We have a professional video production company. So I can't wait to get all the recap media out there. But basically, Mummers Museum, 250 guests expected, mostly real estate agents and real estate professionals. It's being headlined by a keynote speaker, Dr. Kevin Gillen with the Lindy Institute of Drexel University for like the greater Philadelphia real estate market update, forecasting, and discussion. That'll be about 30 minutes. And it leads into an awesome panel discussion with Mike McCann and Super Dave Hudson and Rachel Street, Joe Bograd, motivational real estate sales strategist Scott Einbinder, and also attorney Lita Bonner to talk all about the buyer's agent commissions, lawsuits and litigation and changes to the industry. So it's going to be like a really interesting, diverse conversation. It's being put on by Pat Lopez, the real estate show with Pat Lopez and Quain Oak Bank. I'm the co-host of the event. We're looking forward to doing something a little bit different. The educational piece is something that I'm really starting to, try to focus on because I know how to throw a networking party. We just had one at Wreck and Royal with about 200 guests in Center City, which was a lot of fun. But this is a morning time event. We got a 9:30 check-in. It ends at 12 p.m. And it's being sponsored by some, really great companies, including Quain Oak Mortgage, Core Inspection Group, Mutual Abstract Title, Thomas LaCroix Allstate, Staging Craft, and the Urban League too. So great lineup. Didn't put it together all myself. I had a lot of help doing it through, Pat's influence. So we'll see. We're hoping to make it a recurring thing, and would love to, have you on the panel next time if you're open to it, Maria.
I'm always open to it.
Awesome.
Always ready to be on a panel or to speak.
Yes.
Especially if it has to do with inspiration, motivation, real estate, of course.
Of course, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I want to dive in a little bit. I know you've been talking with Scott a lot about the buyer agent commissions and all the different lawsuits that are going on. And I'd like to get some of your insights, Josh.
Yeah. Well, Scott Einbinder, we represent him. I'm his project manager, booking agent. We've been booking a lot of private seminars revolving around some really hot topics, mostly focused on generating and acquiring new listings. Listings have always been important, but with the, current buyer's agent compensation lawsuits and litigation, it's like critical now from what I'm hearing, to focus on listings. For decades, or since the beginning of, the real estate game here in America, buyer's agents never had to negotiate their compensation. It's always been negotiated by the listing agent with the seller. They could be licensed for 30 days or 30 years, and they'd be entitled to that commission if they bring a buyer to the table and it closes, regardless of the level of, customer service or professionalism that was provided by the buyer's agent. Now, if this, goes through the way it's panning out, the listing agent and the seller won't be offering a buyer's agent commission to buyer's agents. So the buyer's agent will now have to prove their value, present their value, and earn their money from the actual consumer, from the actual buyer. So, if it's a $15,000 commission that they were expecting to get previously, they're going to have to charge that to the buyer. And if the agent is, confident in what they can do and can sell it, they'll get it. Otherwise, maybe the buyers will start to go directly to the listing agent. There's so much changing with the, technology and consumer access that buyers, better than I do, but it just seems like they see what they want online. They call the agent that's, there, and they need access, and they want it. There's a lot of responsibility and duties that go along with being a buyer's agent, and I understand both sides, but we're the only country left that's doing it like this. Like India, UK, Australia, there's not a buyer's agent commission like that, so it's certainly interesting times. I think like 80% of the 1.2 plus million agents in the country are mainly buyer's agents. I feel like
there's about 2 million real estate licenses.
Yeah.
And there's about, and I would say 90% are buyer's agent.
Right, exactly. So
as you know, I'm mainly a listing broker.
Yep. Your face is on every for sale sign in every neighborhood across the city.
I don't have my face on there, but my name, Maria Quattrone, is certainly on there for sure.
Yep.
And I think, here's the thing though. Most of the time when a buyer calls about a listing, they don't buy it. I'd say 95% of the time.
Interesting.
They end up buying something else.
Right.
And so there was a push for a buyer agent advocacy, because everybody before, and this is before I was in the industry, everybody before was always representing the seller, even if you had the buyer.
Yes.
So they switched it up. They had buyer agency. Part of the issue with this is that it may buyers from actually being able to buy houses.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure that any of this is good. It may also, if you don't offer a buyer agency commission, it may cause that property not to sell for the price that it would sell for from the beginning. And there are ways to do it. You can tack on the 3% or whatever, 5% or 4% or 2, whatever it is, to the sales price and have it be a seller assist, right? So you can factor in, because most buyers can't also afford to put the money out of their pocket. They're using that as a down payment.
Right.
So I see massive problems with this. They want to control fees. Well, why don't you should control then every fee? You should control every sales fee then. Control the lawyers who are the ones who are getting 33%. That's fixed. Who doesn't get that on litigation?
Right.
For if they're, representing especially class action. So I find it ironic, quite frankly.
Yep.
I actually got a direct mail, a piece in the mail that said, if you sold a house, you could be entitled to. It's crazy.
It's everywhere. I heard that the biggest source of complaints about buyers agents comes from one party, and it's the listing agents. A lot of listing agents like yourself, maybe like less professional or less career oriented real estate agents, which is going to make it a better experience for the true professionals, and ultimately, a better experience for the consumer. Because like a consumer could walk into a random Weichert office and say, I'm looking to buy a house, and they could get matched with somebody, not knowing what their experience is or what their credentials are if they're not doing their due diligence. And I don't know, I think thinning out the herd a little bit, as harsh as that is, will make the cream rise to the top in the real estate industry. And as far as consumers being boxed out, everything is happening in real time, and business models are evolving. And who's to say that there won't be another low cost, high quality option for consumers and buyers out there to be fairly represented and pay a small fee, not 3%, but a flat small fee, buy a house. But it's I think it's like time to double down. All my real estate agents that I talk to, you have nothing to lose by doubling down on your listing acquisition efforts, because that's going to be and you could make 4 times the amount of money you're making now if you are able to adapt to the listings of the business.
I think it's a hard thing for most people to do.
Yes. Yeah,
it's a whole different business being a listing broker than it is a buyer.
Totally.
And there's so many things that go into it. In fact, that's why I do a lot of expired listings, because most of them, I say 90% of them, haven't properly been handled from the beginning.
Yep.
And so, I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens, but it definitely will weed out a lot of people who only sell maybe 4 houses a year, which is an incredible amount.
Yes.
Frankly.
More than the average. More like 50% of agents did 1 deal or less, and 70 or 80% did less than 3 deals last year. It's just like, definitely. But have you brought this up in listing presentations yet? I'm just curious, if you were to tell a seller that they don't have to pay a buyer's commission, you're going to piss off all your.
I don't do that.
No.
I handle it by saying, here's what we charge.
Yep.
Here's what, in order to get the most maximum exposure, I think that you should pay on the other side. That's up to you. But if it's me doing this at this point in time, because nothing has been settled and it's still all active in the system, in the court system. Yep. So I'm not going to go against like status quo, but I'm making sure, and I always have said that, sometimes we get a little more on the list side, especially for certain price ranges. We have fees that we charge, and that's my prerogative. But it's very clear. It's stated verbally and in writing.
Yep.
And, doing this for so long and being a listing broker for so long, we have a process and a system around pushing listings through the system and getting them sold with all these different, there's like, I said, devils in the detail of being a listing broker.
Yes.
Right. So there's a lot that goes into it, a lot more than people realize. And I don't know how a single agent by themselves without a team behind them could really be a strong listing broker.
Right.
I mean, maybe if you've been doing this for 40 years and you're like a control freak and, you don't have all of the strong listing brokers have teams behind them.
Right.
I don't know one that doesn't.
And I would imagine that they're not prospecting just in their sphere of influence. They're prospecting outside of their sphere of influence, because I feel like a lot of brokers out there tell you to, open up your cell phone, let every person in your phone know what you're up to. I mean, that's a decent strategy, but it's only so big. You know, you have to really, that's a minute
I think it's
percent.
a lie.
Yeah, it's a lie. It's a lie. You know, so yeah.
I think it's a lie. I don't think you can have a scalable business by just doing that.
Right.
I don't think anybody, unless they're some kind of maybe sports figure or something, or been in the industry for quite some time, has a sphere enough big enough to generate enough transactions to have a thriving business. So we have 40,000 plus people in our database, and we're calling them. I mean, I'm to doing activity daily report. Literally, Josh, taking the pen and crossing it X,
Yep.
X, talk to the circle, set an appointment, highlight.
Yes.
I shared it last week on one of my lives. I'm going to share it again this week. To start doing it again is something I used to do in the late 2000s, and it worked really well. Plus, it gives you a sense of when you cross something out and you circle.
Yes.
You have a sense of fulfillment.
Yep.
Fulfillment is part of one of the things that people need to have in their life, right? So you can look at it in the CRM. It's not quite the same as writing it down and then writing down the lead, writing down the appointment, writing down the next step.
Yeah.
Simple solves the complex.
I like that. Yes, absolutely.
Right. Simple solves the complex.
You got a pen, you got a pad, maybe put a comfortable pair of walking shoes on and hit the streets, knock on some doors. I mean, I did apartment listings for 4 years between the Philly apartment company and TCS management. Me and my childhood friend, Steve, who I brought into the business for those few years, he still does it. But we used to cruise the streets of Philadelphia before anybody was up, and we would take pictures of 4 rent by owner signs. Like, the crappier the sign, the better. The more darker, the better, just because we knew that that landlord was the real estate agent. We would take a picture of it. We would log all the numbers. We would log all the addresses. And when we got back, we would go straight down and introduce ourselves. And we had an interesting business model at the time that a lot of people aren't really open to using, which is, for the apartment listings, was non-exclusive listing agreements, where we would say, don't change anything you're doing in your efforts to find a qualified tenant. We're going to do everything that we need to do. If we find somebody before you do and you accept them, then you owe us 1 month's rent. If you find somebody before we do, you don't owe us a dime. So it's a little bit risky. You're listing it, you're putting it up there, you're doing all the legwork. They could find somebody, but literally, I would say 8 times out of 10, we were able to find somebody for them. And we did about 12 leases per month based on those efforts. And then the lease would end, or be coming to an end. They would call us right back, and we built that up over years. So I think there's gold in the streets, and there's gold like knocking on doors and really getting out there, because it's not going to come to you just by sitting on your couch. So
yeah. The streets are paved with gold.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
You got to go walk them.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Totally.
I think who's heard this? There's Barry Habib wrote a book about streets are paved with gold or something.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true.
There's so much opportunity around you if you just open your eyes and look.
Yes.
And be open to it, and be open to change, and be open to doing more work than you're used to doing. It does take a different cadence, and you need to understand what that is. So we're writing all of these things down. How many dials, how many contacts, how many conversations, how many appointments set, had, and then listings are by your agency sign. Mm-hmm. And so you can't improve what you don't measure.
Right.
So measuring, here I am, this is what I did this week. Oh, great. Now what can I tighten up? Here I'm going to go to next week. So until you have data to look at, you can't really understand where you are to figure out where you're going, because real estate is math. Real estate sales is math.
Yes.
How many do you need to make? How many contacts?
And you can't measure. That's right. And you can't measure if you don't attempt. And, when you attempt, you're going to get rejected a lot. And, when you give up after rejection, what's there, a log and measure. So you have to, I think that's the hardest part. And you seem to have like a, cover or a shield that you don't get deterred by no's or go F yourself or hang-ups or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I think you have to have a tough skin to do the work, to log the numbers, to get the results. And it's not going to happen after just one good week of efforts. Like if you're starting this week with nothing on the books already, you're already, 2 weeks behind. It's got to be, bulking up what's coming, because once you take your foot off the gas, it's hard to catch up. So I think that's
why it's consistency, discipline, day in, day out. And if you didn't make the commitment Monday to Friday, there's Saturday and Sunday.
Right. Exactly.
And you can't sit around in this type of environment. You got to do the work.
That's right.
That work works.
Work always works.
Yes, work always works. Yep. Yeah, lots of good stuff. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and I don't really care if people hang up on me. So my mindset is I'm only looking for the people that want my help.
Right.
I talked to somebody this morning, and I said, well, the listing's jacked up. It's not done right. He was expired. I said, it doesn't make sense, because it was like 5 parcels on 3 deeds, and the listing agent didn't do it right. Anyway, I said to him, how motivated are you on a scale from 1 to 10 to sell the house? He said, I'm not. I said, you don't sell? And he said, no, my wife wants to sell. She went to New Jersey. I said, well, from 1 to 10, how much do you not want to sell? He's like, 10.
Wow.
So that is not something I can overcome.
No.
Right? So I'm not going to waste any time with him, because no matter, even if I took the listing and I did it right and we brought an offer, I don't think he would sell it.
Right.
They're not, and his wife aren't aligned, right? So that's you can't change that. So don't try to change that. Just find the people that need your help now, that are motivated on a scale from 1 to 10 to actually get sold.
Yep.
And then when they sold, where would they go next, and what that looks like. Yep. And so those things are things that you need to understand. You can't change somebody's unwillingness to do something, right?
You can, I think you can always, afford to be selective, even if you're just starting out. Like, you don't want to take on a listing, just because the seller says they want this number, just for you to put it up there and, spin your wheels for months at a time. I don't know. It's just like, if you're hustling backwards, then you don't even need to be working with that client, like, respectfully. And you should be focusing on the clients that understand what they want. And if you're confident you can provide what they need, those are the people you want to spend your time on. So I try not to, because I don't do anything like for like a flash in the pan, quick buck. Everything I do is playing the long game, building long-term relationships with my partners and my sponsor partners and clients. And, if I can't help them or they don't want to be helped, then it's just not the right time to be doing any business with them.
Yeah, it definitely is not. Well, Josh, this has been a great conversation today.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing you soon. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and we'll have you back in a few months to see where things are and where all this goes. So thanks. Congrats on all your success.
You too.
Keep on rocking, on trucking.
You too, Maria. Let me know if you need anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yep.